The observation deck of the galactic triumvirate's proving grounds hummed with the quiet, self-satisfied thrum of superior technology. It was a sterile, circular room, one wall a seamless pane of diamond laminate transparisteel that offered a god's-eye view of the planet below. And what a planet it was! Xylos 7 officially designated a Class-9 lethal biosphere, a world where the flora and fauna had long ago entered into a genocidal pact to see which could evolve into the most efficient killing machine first. The air was a corrosive whisper, the rain was a mild acid, and the ground itself had a nasty habit of liquefying into sinkholes of digestive slush. It was, by all galactic metrics, a complete and utter nightmare. Seated in grav chairs that molded perfectly to their exotic anatomies were the day's observers. First was High Executor Cthar of the Crescian hegemony. Cthar was magnificent, a bipedal mountain of obsidian chitin, rippling muscle, and 4 arms, each ending in a pincer-like claw capable of shearing through starship plating. His species had conquered 3-star systems through sheer, unadulterated martial prowess. They saw the universe as a simple equation. Strength was the numerator, everything else was the denominator. He watched the swirling, toxic clouds of Xylos 7 with a predator's placid gaze, his mandibles clicking a slow, rhythmic beat of boredom. Beside him floated Xylos, a Xylosian savant, naturally. His people had named the planet, after all, mostly as a cosmic joke. Xylos was a being of pure intellect, or so he claimed. He resembled a shimmering, gelatinous brain suspended in a crystal-clear containment field, a constellation of delicate, light-tipped tendrils drifting around him like thoughtful nebulae. The Xylosians had transcended the vulgarity of physical form millennia ago. They saw the universe as a grand, intricate puzzle, and they were the only ones clever enough to have all the corner pieces. Physicality, to Xylos, was a crude tool for crude beings. Another subject for the crucible, Cthar rumbled, his voice like rocks grinding together. Which pitiable species has drawn the short protein straw today? Xylos pulsed a gentle, condescending shade of lavender. The specimen is from a relatively new race, High Executor. They call themselves humans from the Sol system. A rather unremarkable biped. Cthar made a chittering sound of disgust. Human. Yes, I have seen the preliminary scans. Pathetically symmetrical. No natural armor, no claws, no discernible venom sacs. Their primary defense mechanism appears to be secreting saline solution from their ocular ports and making loud, emotionally charged noises. How did such a creature even achieve spaceflight? Sheer, baffling stubbornness, it seems, Xylos shimmered. They are a class 12 species on the galactic hardiness scale. For context, the gelatinous slime mold of Ganth is a class 8. The analysis suggests they are physiologically frail, psychologically unstable, and prone to nonsensical bouts of what they term hope. It is a fascinating pathology. The purpose of the proving ground was simple, to test the mettle of species applying for elevated status within the triumvirate. It was a brutal, unforgiving process. A single member of a species was dropped on a Xylos 7 with basic survival gear. Their goal was to survive for one standard planetary rotation, 37 cycles. The record, held by a particularly ferocious Grok marauder, was 4 cycles. Most subjects didn't last 4 hours. And we are subjecting one of these humans to a Class-9 world? Cthar asked, a hint of amusement in his tone. Is this a test or a public service? It seems needlessly cruel, like crushing a grub with a meteor. We will learn nothing from this. Ah, but that is where you are mistaken, my dear executor, Xylos pulsed, his light tendrils swirling with academic glee. We will learn the precise speed at which their flimsy biology succumbs to atmospheric corrosion. We will document the exact pitch of their terminal scream. It is all valuable data for the grand tapestry of galactic knowledge. The triumvirate requires empirical evidence of their unsuitability. This is merely a formality, a very loud, very brief formality. A side door hissed open and a triumvirate functionary, a slender, insectoid being, skittered in. Observers, the subject is prepped for orbital insertion. He is designated Jake. On the main screen, a live feed flickered to life, showing the inside of the drop pod. And there he was. Jake. He was aggressively average. He had a moderate amount of brown hair on his head, a face that was neither handsome nor ugly, and a build that suggested he had carried groceries before, but probably not anything heavier. He was dressed in simple, gray utility overalls. He was currently humming. Kthar leaned forward, his massive head tilting. Is that a sign of distress? A pre-mortem vocalization? Unclear, Xylos admitted. Their cultural database is a chaotic mess of conflicting signals. It could be a war chant, a mating call, or an expression of contentment. Their communication methods are as primitive as their biology. The drop pod's klaxon blared, a universal sign for imminent peril. Jake didn't flinch. He simply finished his humming with a little flourish, then stretched his arms over his head, a loud crack echoing in the small chamber. He looked less like a man about to be dropped onto a planet designed by a committee of homicidal gods, and more like a man getting ready to do some light gardening. Orbital insertion in 3, 2, 1, the automated voice droned. The pod ejected with a violent shudder, and the view screen switched to an external camera. The small metal egg plummeted through the sickly green and orange atmosphere of Xylos 7. I will wager a decant of my finest nutrient paste that he is consumed by a chitin striker within the first hour, Xylos projected calmly. A foolish bet, Kthar grunted. The atmospheric acid will dissolve his soft tissues long before that. I give him 20 minutes. The pod hit the ground with a bone-jarring crash that would have liquefied the innards of a lesser species. For a long moment, there was only static. Then, the feed cleared. The hatch hissed open, and a wave of corrosive fog rolled inside. Jake stepped out, blinking in the acrid twilight. He took a deep, deliberate breath, his face scrunching up slightly. Phew, his voice crackled over the comms, startling the observers. Smells like a barbecue and a chemical spill had a baby. Kinda nostalgic, actually. He slung a small pack over his shoulder and surveyed the landscape. It was a vista of jagged, rust-colored rocks, bubbling tar pits, and flora that looked like it was made of knives and spite. A low growl echoed from a nearby cave. Jake glanced at it, then at the sky, where a trio of leathery-winged predators circled like vultures. He then looked down at the twisted metal of the drop pod. Well, he said to no one in particular, can't let good scrap go to waste. Kthar and Xylos exchanged a look of profound confusion. This was not the expected reaction. There was no screaming, no panicked running, no immediate dissolution. Instead, the human began calmly dismantling the wreckage of his own arrival vehicle with a multi-tool from his pack. He was salvaging. His neural pathways must have been severed in the crash, Xylos hypothesized, his light tendrils flickering with uncertainty. He is exhibiting behavior inconsistent with any known survival instinct. He is nesting. He is a fool, Kthar corrected, though his certainty was beginning to waver. He exposes himself in the open. The skulkers will find him soon. Their pack hunting methods are flawless. As if on cue, a new sound joined the planet's cacophony, a series of high-pitched yips and snarls. From the shadows of the rock formations, a pack of creatures emerged. The skulkers were nightmares on 4 legs, lean and wiry with backward-jointed limbs, skin the color of dried blood, and mouths filled with serrated, needle-like teeth. They fanned out, circling the human, their movements fluid and coordinated. It was a classic, inescapable encirclement maneuver. Jake stopped his work. He looked at the skulkers. One of them, clearly the alpha, took a bold step forward, its lips peeling back in a silent snarl. Jake watched it, his head tilted. He reached into his pack, and the observers braced themselves for a futile, last-ditch defense with some pathetic human weapon. He pulled out a small, foil-wrapped brick. He unwrapped it, revealing a block of nutrient paste, standard survival rations. He broke off a piece and tossed it on the ground, about halfway between himself and the alpha skulker. The creature flinched back, startled. It sniffed the air, its slitted pupils dilating. The entire pack froze, watching their leader. The alpha crept forward, lowered its head, and snatched the piece of ration in its jaws. It chewed once, twice, and then its entire demeanor changed. Its aggressive posture softened. Its tail gave a tentative, almost imperceptible wag. Jake broke off another piece and tossed it. The alpha ate that one too. What is he doing? Kthar's voice was a low growl of disbelief. Is he trying to bargain with them? The ration blocks are nutritionally optimized for carbon-based life. Xylos pulsed, frantically cross-referencing data. To the skulker's primitive palate, it must be an explosion of flavor and energy unparalleled in its experience. He is not bargaining. He is bribing. Jake didn't just bribe them. He spent the next hour systematically teaching them. He would make a hand gesture, toss a piece of food. The skulkers, intelligent pack hunters that they were, learned with astonishing speed. Sit. Stay. Fetch. Within the hour, the alpha skulker was nudging Jake's hand with its wet nose, begging for another piece like a common domesticated canine. The rest of the pack lay in a relaxed circle, watching him work on the drop pod, their predatory hunger replaced by an expectant curiosity. The first crack in the observer's perception had appeared. It was a hairline fracture, but it was there. This human did not operate according to the established rules of prey. Over the next several days, the cracks widened into chasms. Jake, with the help of his new skulker pack who now served as both guards and hauling labor, dragged the salvaged plates from the drop pod to a large, defensible cave he had found. He didn't just hide in the cave. He began to fortify it. He used the multi-tool to cut and shape the metal, building a reinforced door. Then he did something that utterly broke Xylos's analytical mind. He found a deposit of iron-rich rock in a vein of something akin to coal. He built a primitive furnace out of clay and stone. He constructed a bellows from the flexible hide of a giant slug-like creature he'd found and dispatched with a sharpened stick. He built a forge. A forge. Kthar bellowed, his four arms gesturing wildly. He has the means to create a basic shelter, and he is wasting precious energy and time on primitive metallurgy? What could he possibly need that his tool cannot provide? I do not know, Xylos admitted, his form flickering in a distressed shade of gray. This is not survival. This is industry. It is illogical. The energy expenditure versus the potential gain is catastrophically inefficient. But Jake worked with a calm, methodical purpose that defied their logic. He forged tools. A shovel. A hoe. An axe. Simple, crude things, but functional. Then he turned his attention to the land itself. He found a small plateau where a freshwater spring, filtered through layers of volcanic rock, bubbled up from the ground. The soil was still toxic, but less so than the lowlands. And then he pulled a small, sealed pouch from his pack. Seeds. He began to farm. He tilled the alien soil with his handmade hoe. He used the skulker's waste as fertilizer. He planted neat little rows of hardy, genetically engineered earth crops, potatoes, corn, and a resilient strain of kale. He built an irrigation ditch from the spring. He was not merely surviving on Xylos 7. He was colonizing it. This is madness, Kthar whispered, a sound few in the galaxy had ever heard him make. He is trying to tame the death world. It is more than that, Xylos pulsed, his tone bordering on existential dread. He is not taming it. He is repurposing it. He is treating a Class-9 lethal biosphere as an undeveloped property. The second predator arrived on day 12. A chitin striker, the very creature Xylos had wagered on. It was a terrifying beast, a six-legged insectoid horror the size of a ground car. It moved in absolute silence, its body a masterpiece of natural camouflage. It was an ambush predator, and its hunting ground was the plateau Jake had chosen for his farm. The observers watched, their manipulators and tendrils poised. This was it. The human's luck had run out. You could not bribe a creature that was a living embodiment of patient, silent murder. The chitin striker stalked the edge of the small field for hours, waiting for the perfect moment. Jake was weeding his corn seedlings, his back to the creature's position. The skulkers were nervous, whining and pacing at the edge of the cave, but they did not approach the farm, as if held back by an invisible line. The striker gathered its powerful legs and launched itself through the air, its razor-sharp forelimbs extended for a killing blow. It hit the ground with a sickening thud, 10 feet from the human. But it didn't strike. It convulsed, a net of finely woven metallic wire, almost invisible against the soil, wrapped around its body. A tripwire trap. A simple, elegant, primitive trap. Jake didn't even turn around immediately. He finished pulling a particularly stubborn weed, tossed it aside, and then slowly stood up, wiping his hands on his overalls. He walked over to the thrashing, ensnared predator. He didn't carry a weapon. He carried a bucket. He stood before the chitin striker, a creature whose very presence could induce cardiac arrest in most sentient species, and he studied it. He noted the way its mandibles clicked in frustration, the way its multifaceted eyes tracked his every move. He wasn't looking at a monster. He was looking at a machine. For the next week, a bizarre routine unfolded. Jake never harmed the striker. He also never freed it. He simply left a bucket of water and a haunch of meat from a lesser creature his skulkers had hunted just outside the striker's reach each day. At first, the beast ignored it. But thirst and hunger are powerful motivators. Eventually, it would drag itself, net and all, to consume the offering. Then, Jake started moving the food. He would place it in a different spot each day, forcing the striker to follow his lead. He was conditioning it. He systematically dismantled its identity as an ambush predator and rebuilt it as something else. After a week, he loosened the net. The striker did not attack. It waited. It looked at Jake, then at the empty spot where the food usually was. It had learned a new kind of patience. It had learned that this soft, strange creature was now the sole arbiter of its survival. By day 20, the chitin striker was his guard dog. It patrolled the perimeter of his farm, its terrifying appearance a perfect deterrent to the planet's lesser horrors. It no longer hunted. It waited to be fed. Jake had not tamed it in the conventional sense. He had psychologically dismantled it and reassembled it into a more useful configuration. He had hacked its predatory instincts. He domesticated it, Xylos stammered, his crystal containment field flickering wildly. He turned an apex ambush predator into livestock security. That is not in any of my databases. It is not a thing that happens. Thar was silent. He was watching the human with an expression that bordered on reverence. This was a different kind of strength. A strength that did not need chitinous armor or shearing claws. It was a quiet, relentless strength that reshaped reality to its will. The final test came on day 30. The apex of the apex predators. A sky screecher. It was a colossal, winged reptile that had ruled the skies of Xylos, 7 for eons. Its cry could shatter rock, and its shadow meant certain death. It had noticed the strange, orderly patch of green on the plateau and the unusual gathering of lesser predators. It saw an infestation. It saw a threat to its domain. It descended from the sky like a living meteor, its screech tearing through the air. The skulkers whimpered and fled into the cave. The chitin striker flattened itself to the ground, a primal fear overriding its new conditioning. Jake just looked up. He shielded his eyes with his hand, as if watching a passing airplane. "Well, hello there," he muttered. "You're a big fella." The sky screecher landed with a ground-shaking impact, its massive head, larger than Jake's entire body, swiveling to fix him with its cold, intelligent eyes. It opened its beak, revealing rows of teeth like obsidian daggers, and unleashed a preparatory roar. Jake didn't run. He didn't cower. He held up a hand, a universal gesture to wait a moment. He then turned and walked over to a large, lumpy shape covered by a tarp. The sky screecher paused, its reptilian brain momentarily short-circuited by this utterly inappropriate response to its display of dominance. Jake pulled the tarp away. Underneath was a crude, but shockingly effective, sculpture. It was a massive head, cobbled together from salvaged metal, rock, and bioluminescent fungi, crafted to look like a rival sky screecher. But it was more than that. Jake had spent days observing the territorial markings and threat displays of the species. The sculpture's eyes were glowing with a specific pattern of aggression. Its crest was angled in a posture of ultimate challenge. And from a speaker salvaged from the drop pod, a distorted, amplified recording of the screecher's own cry played back, pitched lower, made to sound bigger, more dominant. The living sky screecher stared at the effigy. It let out a confused, questioning squawk. The effigy, controlled by Jake with a simple lever, swiveled and roared back with the amplified recording. To the sky screecher, this was an unimaginable affront. A challenger had appeared, deep within its territory, mocking it, claiming its land. Its rage, which had been focused on the tiny human, now transferred entirely to the silent, roaring metal effigy. It lunged, not at Jake, but at the sculpture, tearing into it with beak and talon. While the mighty predator was locked in a life-or-death battle with a pile of junk, Jake calmly walked to its other side. He had a large, sharpened metal spear he had forged. He didn't attack the screecher. He approached a massive, parasitic creature, a kind of land leech, that was attached to the screecher's hind leg, a common affliction for the species. These parasites were a source of constant pain and irritation, impossible for the screechers to remove themselves. With a few precise, powerful thrusts, Jake killed the parasite. He pried its armored head from the screecher's scales, and a torrent of dark, foul-smelling fluid poured out. The sky screecher, having finally demolished the inanimate challenger, felt the sudden, blessed relief on its leg. The chronic pain it had lived with for years was gone. It turned, its rage spent, and saw the small, soft creature standing beside the dead parasite, holding the bloody spear. It lowered its massive head. It looked at the dead parasite. It looked at the human. It let out a low, soft rumble, a sound completely alien to the observers. It was a sound of acknowledgement, of gratitude. Jake reached out and patted the tip of its snout. "There you go, big guy. All better." On day 37, the final day of the trial, a massive tectonic event rocked the continent. A volcano, long dormant, erupted, spewing ash and fire into the sky. The ground shook violently, and fissures split the land. The observers watched, certain that this, finally, was the end. No organism could survive such a cataclysm. But Jake's compound survived. His cave was nestled in a geologically stable section of the mountain. He had built his farm on a plateau of solid bedrock. He had even constructed rudimentary seismic dampers at the entrance to his cave using woven, flexible vines and counterweights, a trick he'd learned from a documentary about ancient human architecture. While the world outside tore itself apart, Jake, his pack of skulkers, his chitin striker guard, and the colossal sky screecher roosting protectively over the cave entrance, weathered the storm in perfect safety. The observation deck was utterly silent. The trial was over. The human had not just survived. He had thrived. He had built a functioning homestead on a planet that was statistically unsurvivable. Xylos was the first to speak, his voice a faint, trembling whisper projected into the room. "High Executor, what is that creature?" Thor did not answer for a long time. He stared at the screen, at the human who was now calmly sweeping volcanic ash off his front porch with a broom he'd made from bundled reeds. "Open a channel," Thor commanded the functionary. The comm crackled to life. "Human Jake," Thor's voice boomed, stripped of all its earlier arrogance. It was now laced with a profound, terrifying respect. "You have passed the trial. Explain. Explain your methods. How is any of this possible?" Jake looked up towards the sky, as if he knew they were watching. He leaned on his broom. "How?" he chuckled. "Oh, this place? It's not so bad. Honestly, it's a bit of a fixer-upper, but it's got good bones. Reminds me of home." "Home?" Xylos pulsed, his confusion reaching a fever pitch. "Your home world is a Class-9 lethal biosphere." "Class-9?" Jake laughed, a genuine, hearty sound that echoed in the sterile observation room. "Oh, you guys are adorable. No, we classify Earth as a Class-12 garden world, but our classification system is a bit different. See, your scale seems to be based on how big and scary the predators are. Ours is based on sheer, overwhelming variety and relentless persistence." He started ticking points off on his fingers. "Look, your big scary bird up there? That's basically just a glorified eagle with a temper problem. On Earth, we have bears that can outrun our ground vehicles and hunt for 20 hours straight. We have sharks in our oceans that are perfect killing machines, unchanged for millions of years. We have tiny little jellyfish and frogs whose single touch can kill you. We have insects that carry plagues and spiders whose venom can liquefy your organs. That's not even getting into the small stuff." The observers listened, captivated and horrified. "You're worried about acid rain?" Jake continued, gesturing to the sky. "We have microscopic viruses that can rewrite your own cells to become factories for their own replication. They are invisible, they are everywhere, and they are constantly evolving in a silent, permanent arms race against us. We have bacteria that can eat plastic, survive in volcanic vents, and go dormant for centuries. The most dangerous things on my planet aren't the things with teeth and claws. They're the things you can't even see." He leaned closer to the comm pickup on a salvaged panel. "You see, we aren't strong like Thor's people. We aren't smart like Xylos's people. We're fragile. We're soft-skinned and slow. So, when everything on our planet spent its entire evolutionary budget on trying to kill us, we had to get creative. We developed persistence. Not just running, but the ability to just keep going. Long after every other creature would give up, we developed adaptability. You drop us in a desert, a frozen wasteland, or a toxic jungle, and our first thought isn't, we're going to die, it's all right. How do we make this place livable? We see a monster, and we don't just see a threat. We see a potential tool, a food source, or a problem to be solved. We call it ingenuity. Most of the galaxy would call it insanity. And we weaponize things you wouldn't even consider weapons. Empathy. Cooperation. We learn to understand the creatures around us, to figure out what they want, what they fear. That's how you tame a predator. Not with a whip, but with psychology. We learn to work together in massive groups to terraform our entire world, for good and for ill. We build things. We farm. We turn death worlds into gardens because our garden is a death world, and we just got used to it. We even do this stuff for fun. We call it camping. Jake stood up straight and shouldered his broom. Being underestimated is our single greatest strategic advantage. You all looked at me and saw prey. And when you're looking for prey, you miss the signs that you're actually dealing with the most patient, most adaptable, most relentlessly stubborn invasive species in the entire universe. The channel went silent. In the observation deck, the only sound was the faint hum of the life support systems. Thar, the mighty warrior, slowly lowered himself in his chair, his forearms limp. His entire philosophy of strength had been shattered. Xylos, the brilliant savant, was pulsing a deep, frantic blue, his tendrils spasming as his entire understanding of biology and sociology was forcibly rewritten. He had just witnessed a creature turn the very concept of a death world into a punchline. A functionary skittered back into the room, its antennae twitching nervously. Observers, the trial is concluded. As per protocol, the subject is to be awarded a boon of his choosing. Thar waved a dismissive claw, too stunned to speak. Xylos managed to project a weak thought. Ask the human what he desires. The functionary spoke into the calm. Human Jake, the triumvirate honors your achievement. You may ask for anything within our power to grant. A fleet of ships? A title of nobility? A personal moon? There was a pause. Jake looked around at his little farm, at the kite and striker standing guard, at the sky screecher, preening its wings on the cliffside. He looked at the rows of corn, just beginning to sprout in the alien soil. You know what? He said, his voice filled with a simple, terrifying contentment. I'm good. But if you have a ship swinging by, I wouldn't mind a few bags of a good nitrogen-rich fertilizer and maybe a cold case of beer. I'm thinking of staying. The functionary's antennae drooped. Thar made a sound like a collapsing building. Xylos simply went dark. Out there, in the vast, dangerous galaxy, the other races had their claws, their armor, their psychic powers, and their advanced technology. Humanity had something far more potent. They had farmers, and they were starting to look for new plots of land.